call my class one of the greatest classes in the history of the school. Because like myself, many of them have benefited from the teaching, from the system of education that we received. We were taught that an education is an engine of opportunity.
Well, once a lawyer, always a lawyer. I'm an attorney by profession, and I graduated from Central Law School in 1965. Worked 1 year at South Carolina State School of Law, believe it or not, as a professor and law librarian. Then I came to Warrington, which is still my home, and joined the law practice with T.T. Clayton. His wife is Congresswoman Eva Clayton. And we practiced law together for 20 years. And then I opened my own practice. During those years, a lot of African Americans in eastern North Carolina wanted to hire black lawyers.
Well, when I graduated from Central, and because it was a new curriculum in recreation, my first job was with 8th Army Headquarters in Seoul, Korea. Really because of Central having that curriculum. And then after I left Seoul, I went to Philadelphia. I went to an employment and training national agency called OIC. And OIC is a national and international organization. Every place I went in this world, I talked about North Carolina Central. I ran into Central folk in Ghana. I ran into Central folk in Zimbabwe. I ran into Central folk in Gabon. Libreville, Gabon. I was having lunch with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And a young lady walked in and she said, "Where are you from?" I hear a little accent. I said, "North Carolina." I said, "Where are you from?" She said, "North Carolina." She said, "Where did you go to school?" I said, "North Carolina Central." Well, we screamed, Eagles, did the whole thing. All over this world, there's a Central person, or there are North Carolina Central people.
When you leave this institution, there'll be two bricks out there. One to hit you, the other one to knock you down. So what your challenge is to get up. You can fall as many times if you have to, but the key is get up. I am true to this institution. I don't be so emotional, but I've had some of the best friends come out of this institution. People I've met, they've been good to me. Just the circle of friends and just people, knowing people in general in Durham has been a wonderful experience.
And there was this rail out in front of the canteen. You would walk by the rail because that's where the guys sat. And my senior year, my first week back on campus, I walked by the rail on my way to the canteen, and sitting on this rail was this guy. And I thought, wow, fell in love, got married. Been married 48 years. What can I say? He was a musician, still is.
The first day I walked on campus in 1959, first thing we saw was all these students. I'm from Raleigh, graduated from Dagan High School. But when you walk on campus and see students from every place, and it was like 3,000 or 4,000 students, it appeared. Mr. Holloway was the counselor over orientation, and he said to us, "Look around." We were at B&. Duke Auditorium. Look around and see all these kids here, all these students. And he said, "Look good." He said, "Because when you graduate, half of them will not be here." And unfortunately, he was telling the truth. They were real serious.
I'm originally from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and Coach Herman Riddick gave me a full football scholarship. So there I was with an opportunity to come to college at North Carolina Central. And of course, I came there and played football for 4 years, made sure that I got my academics, graduated cum laude.
Coming out of Berkeley County, and never hardly been to Raleigh or Durham, I heard that Central had a law school. We had this opportunity. I don't understand yet how so many of these poor black farmers and farm workers were able to send their kids to college. In my case, I had a sister and a brother who were both enrolled at Elizabeth City State University. My parents wanted me to go to college. And looking back at the reasons, it was pretty simple. She was one of 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Her father, my grandfather, said to her, I'm going to send my son to school, but you girls can just get married. So she was denied an opportunity to get an education beyond high school. And she wanted each of her children to have that opportunity.
I did not come to college in 1959. I was living with my grandparents, and we were sharecroppers. And during the time I was working as a nanny for that semester, I never lost sight on the vision and the dream that I had. Ever since I was in third grade, I wanted to be a teacher. The first semester I did well, and I went home and worked on the farm with my grandparents. And many times I didn't know whether I was going to go back, but my grandparents gave me $144. That's what I needed to get in. And I remember my grandmother said, I don't know if we're going to be able to continue to do this. But I just stepped out on faith. And I noticed that the resident's mother, we called them that at that time, and in our conversation, I mentioned to her that I really, really, really needed a job. And she told me that they needed a person to work over at the president's house, and I got the job. Dr. Alfonso Elder and Mrs. Elder were mentors to me throughout my college career, those 3 years that I had left. Dr. Elder was a quiet person. He was the persona of a gentleman. Whenever he would meet you, even in walking, he would salute you or tip his hat.
My nostalgia about NCCU's campus is the beauty of it. And that song, The Sloping Hills, the Verdant Green, just defines it.
God, I used to run up and down these hills with heels. When I was in school, you did not wear jeans. Pants on Saturday, shirt and ties for the guys, for the most part, if not certainly shirt. You were well dressed for class.
You could not wear blue jeans to school except on Saturdays. So we had to dress every day as if we were going to work. And as a result, to this day, I don't wear blue jeans. I may have 1 or 2 pairs. That's it. And I embrace that like I do my own business. I consider every day when I hit the street that I'm going to work.
Fayetteville Street was the height of activity. And it was Black Wall Street. They had it all. We had Mutual Life Insurance Company, Mechanics and Farmers Bank, all of this on that stretch. And nice. And they had homes off Fayetteville Street were awesome. Had a black theater on Pettigrew and the Biltmore Hotel. Truly the sloping hills. And my father used to say that Dr. Shepard wanted things in a triangle so you could see all over the campus. When I arrived, the theaters were still segregated. You couldn't even go to the Carolina Theater, I don't think. By the time we left, I believe you could go to the Carolina Theater, but initially you could not. And if they did, I understand you had to sit upstairs. Well, I wouldn't go in any theater that I could sit up, unless that was my choice.
The focus was on careers and moving forward.
I had experienced a lot of racism in every era of life, even catching a bus back to Durham, having to sit in the back. So the water fountains, colored and white, all of that.
It was coming. You could just sort of feel it and see it, and little things were taking place. But the big issue came with the lunch counters in Greensboro. And then that spread to Durham instantaneously almost. So like the next day, the next week, it was in Durham. Now here's the deal. Lawyers have to first graduate from law school. Then they have to pass the bar exam to be licensed. Otherwise, your whole career is dead. Well, we had a racist bar system run by white males, which discriminated against black males. They had a quota system, and nobody could ever prove that, but we knew that 2 or 3 blacks was all that were going to pass the bar in any given year.
The Civil Rights March and the movements and the sit-ins, they used to meet at...
St. Joseph's Church was one church that we frequently went to.
But Durham was kind of progressive, though. They would talk about how they walked in front of the Woolworths, how they would spit on and that kind of thing. It was pretty ugly. The students were out there in mass. We're going to do this. It was just like Charles Dickens said, these were the best of times, these were the worst of times.
It was a time that I knew that I had to be a part of making life better for generations to come.
Those of us who were there on the scholarships had to be very careful how we participated. Coach Riddick, I'll never forget one of the first nights that there were days there were sit-ins downtown. Coach Riddick told us that he supported us wholly, but he said, don't be foolish now and go down there and throw away your education.
We were really protected from the hostility because it's a predominantly black campus. We were protected.
We recognized that we had an obligation to move forward and to shape and reshape this country. Changes were coming in the biracial system. White America did not know how to retreat, and black America at times did not know how fast to advance.
We offer more than education. We offer you a way of life.
A feeling that it's the next step in your career. A feeling that you're loved.
It's good to be able to sit here 50 years later and look back and remember the sloping hills and the verdant green. And I remember Miss Duncan used to criticize John Holland and me for standing in the window looking out at the pretty girls walking by on those sloping hills. And she said, boys, sit down and study. Now, we went to law school. But she had to admonish us to pay attention. And fortunately, we listened to her.
For 50 years to be friends with your college classmates, your college roommates, whenever we do see each other, it's just like a time didn't even pass.
It is quite an honor to be asked to deliver the Founders Day address. Never in all of the years that I've lived, almost 73 years, would I have thought that I would be the one who's chosen. And certainly, I take it in a very, very posture of being humble. And I just think that this honor, at this point in my life, is just a response from Almighty God to say, well done.
You are here to serve. Go out and serve and do it well.
Being a golden eagle, it represents everything to me because, first of all, it just brings to my mind how wonderful it is when you make a good choice early in life. Best things in life happened to me. First of all, I met my husband here. I joined the sorority here, and both North Carolina Central and this Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority have service as part of our missions. And so it guided me into a whole life of service. Last year, I received the Order of the Longleaf Pine from the governor of Beverly Perdue based on the work in the community. It has filled my life and makes me so proud to be a Golden Eagle because I think that going through those 50 years, I may have been able to help somebody.
NCCU and 50 years. A feeling of belonging. NCC is forever in your blood.